Hi, and welcome to the latest webinar in our New World Summit AI webinar series brought to you by Inspired Minds. We're delighted that today's webinar is produced in partnership with Artificial Solutions and focuses on AI in action. We'll be looking at two different examples of how AI is effectively being deployed to gain advantage in business. I'm John Spindler. I'm the CEO of Capital Enterprise. I am doing this from a very rainy London, and I will be your moderator for the next hour. So don't forget to send through your questions to our speakers. We're super keen to hear from you. So keep them coming. They'll be anonymous, so don't be shy. So with no further ado, I'm going to go to our first amazing speaker. Let me introduce you to Andy Pert, CMSO of Artificial Solutions. He'll be speaking about the 5 steps to maximize your chatbot's potential. Over to you, Andy.
Thank you very much, John, and thank you to everybody for joining the webinar. Like you, it's absolutely horrendous rain outside with lightning and thunder, so if there's any interruptions, it could be due to that. I'd like to spend the next 20 minutes sharing some learnings that have been gathered over the last decade of implementing some of the world's most sophisticated conversational AI systems and deploying them in a fair number of major brands on a worldwide basis. And I hope that the insights that I'm able to share will inspire you and give you some ideas on how you can take a chatbot from really chatbot mediocrity and move it through to conversational AI excellence. I know these are bold claims, and you probably thinking, well, who's this guy? You know, how can he make such claims? Let me just spend 30 seconds giving you a little bit of an introduction to myself and my company. As John said, my name is Andy Pert. I'm a director at a company called Artificial Solutions, where I've worked for the last 10 years. My company specializes in a form of AI that's referred to as conversational AI. Basically, we make technology that allows people to speak to devices, to applications, to websites, in fact, a wide range of different channels in a very human-like, intelligent, and conversational way. And this conversational element, hopefully, is going to come through loud and clear in the majority of the presentation. Now, we've chosen to approach this rather thorny technological issue in a slightly different way than many, in as much as we've built a platform. It's a platform that's called Teneo, and it's a platform that allows non-specialists to very quickly build conversational systems, and once built, they can be deployed in multiple languages, indeed across 36 different languages, running across multiple channels, and supporting multiple modes of input, whether that be text, voice, touch, or even gesture. But that's enough about the company and the positioning. Hopefully I've given you a little bit of an insight into who we are, but you might be thinking, so what? Why should I be even interested in conversational AI technology? Well, there's really 2 reasons. The first reason is it's important to your customers. Customer expectations are changing, and they're changing fast. Increasingly, your customers expect to be able to speak to technology in a human-like way, and for that technology to understand them. It's a little bit like touch screens a decade ago, when they first came in, people were thinking, well, really? And now you cannot imagine working without them. Conversational AI is on that same trajectory. We have an opportunity at our fingertips, and it's an opportunity to change a paradigm that's been with us really since IT first started. And that is why should you and I as humans have to learn about the features and functions of technology, why can't it understand us and respond in a meaningful way, whatever language we use, whatever terminology we use? And to put that into a formal quote, as you can see here, conversational AI is driving a paradigm shift in which the burden of translating intent is going to move from us as individuals through to the computer itself. So for the first reason, it's a technology that's really gaining in importance. And the second reason, well, I think it's a much more pressing reason that's on everybody's lips. I mean, is there a meeting that takes place, a conversation that's had, a webinar that's presented where COVID is not mentioned? It's without exception, it's becoming the new kind of soundbite for the generation, the new normality of working. And COVID has changed how you and I work both as individuals and how businesses react. I suspect there's not any one of us on this call who hasn't struggled to gain access to a call center over the last 3 months. I know I, for one, have been hanging on call centers for hours trying to get a response to queries. One of our customers has seen a 700% increase in traffic through to their contact center. And while all of that is going on, businesses have been hit. They've been hit by working from home, furloughing of staff. So the contingency plans that were put in place just didn't address humans. They were all about what happens if my server fails? What happens if there's a data security breach? It wasn't what happens if we don't have the resources, the people, to be able to answer queries. And this article that you can see on screen at the moment, an article by MIT that was published this time last month, kind of sums it up perfectly. The pandemic is emptying call centers and chatbots are swooping in. And that's the very premise of this presentation. And it's a premise that's been picked up by many industry analysts. And here's just one quote to illustrate it from Gartner, where they say through to 2030, the user experience is undergoing a significant shift in how users experience the digital world, a shift in which conversational platforms are changing the way in which you and I interact with technology. And interestingly, actually published just before the pandemic, Gartner predicted that by this very year, by 2020, 25% of customer service operations would going to integrate virtual assistants into providing automated responses for users. Now, chatting with John just before this call, I mentioned that we have seen a massive increase in the amount of usage of cloud conversational systems. In fact, a year-on-year increase in terms of number of conversations by 551%, which is a hint at the use that's already been taking place of this sort of technology. And it's not just Gartner and other major analysts that are doing this research and saying these things. We conducted some research ourselves. This is an independent research that was recently conducted across 1,900 people looking at the use of voice-based assistants, and some interesting stats that came out. 68% of those people surveyed are already using voice-based assistants at least once a day. And that's increasing. 49% of those people say that they are using them more now than when they first started. But it's not all good news. 70% also said, you know what, I wish these systems were more conversational. I wish they understood me better. I wish they were more intuitive. And that points to the very essence of the rest of this presentation. And it's articulated by the graph that you can see here in front of you. The graph on the left is probably one that you recognize. It's taken from Gartner. It's the Gartner hype cycle that basically tracks the evolution of technologies across a range of different areas over time. And Gartner have found that evolution of technology follows a similar cycle, the graph that you can see on the left, where there's a peak of inflated expectations. You know, the expectations several years ago about what chatbots could do was way up here. And we're now going through this trough of disillusionment because, you know, the graphic that you can see on the right, how many of you have experienced a situation like this? I don't know whether you can actually read the graphics through screen, so let me share the storyline. You know, hi, I'm a virtual assistant. To get started, just ask me a question. And by the way, I'm still learning. So if I can't help you exactly, well, just keep going. You know, I'll try and pass you off to additional resource or whatever. And then the user says, I've just been scammed. And the virtual assistant responds, great. Not the kind of response that you want. So I think it's fair to say that not all chatbots are born equal. And the goal is to make sure that your chatbot can move through to a truly conversational, artificially intelligent, human-like experience. So over the remainder of the presentation, I'd like to share with you 5 tips on how you can actually do that. And the first tip might seem really obvious, and that's to make them conversational. to make sure that they can understand what's said, to make sure that they can understand multiple intents, to make sure, in effect, that they're human-like. It's so obvious. Why is it difficult? Well, to summarize, language itself is difficult. It's incredibly complex. The graphic that you can see here, maybe I'm a little bit nerdy when it comes to language technology, but this is a graphic that is a very blueprint of a language. We've used machine learning to map out hundreds of millions of conversations between people and machines, and to map the very DNA of a language, to map out the relationships between words and synonyms and sentences and meanings and context, so that this is available for our clients to be able to use this blueprint when they're building out a conversational system. Let me just try and illustrate this a little bit clearer in terms of why language is so difficult to build into an intelligent system. Think of probably the most common word in the English language, yes. Now think of how many different ways there are to say yes. Absolutely, 10-4, affirmative, positive. The list goes on, literally hundreds of different ways. So if you're building out a system, you've got to map all of these different ways of saying just one word. Pretty simple though. All you need to do is every time I say 10-4, you go to a lookup table and say, what he really meant was yes, I'll interpret it that way. Let's extend the argument a little bit further. What if I was tasked with building a chatbot that could tell me a joke? So every time I say tell me a joke, it goes to a lookup table and picks one at random and presents it back to me. Again, should be pretty easy. Okay, let's just pull it apart a little bit more. What if instead of saying tell me a joke, I say tell me a funny story, tell me a pun, tell me an anecdote? Again, the same storyline as with the word yes applies. Many different ways of saying the same thing. What if I don't say tell me, I want, I need? What if I say I'm feeling nervous, cheer me up? I'm feeling blue. You know, all these different ways of saying the same thing trigger a response. But to build out a conversational system, you either need to think of all these different ways and program them, or you need to turn to technology to help you with that. Let me illustrate this with a business example. It's an example that illustrates the power of conversational systems and why they're important. And it comes from one of our clients, AT&T. And one of the divisions within AT&T is their smart home technology. It's their digital life division, and it's all around home automation and security. And they've built out a solution of hardware and software that allows people to control their home from heating and lighting, but to control it in a very sophisticated way. So I, as a user, could set very complex rules. Things like, you know, when I'm 2 miles from home, turn the heating up to 68 degrees, make sure the lights in the downstairs study are turned on, and open the security gates. Now, to speak that is relatively easy, but to program that using a GUI interface is really difficult. In fact, AT&T found that only 1/3 of their customers were able to use the GUI interface to set these complex rules. So they wanted a differentiation, a way of using conversation to be able to improve the user experience and make it easier to set these complex rules and to control their home. And they built out a conversational interface, and the stat at the top illustrates a comparison between GUI and using voice, where users, 100% of users, were able to use voice to set these complex rules versus only 1/3 using a GUI interface. Incidentally, the story progressed because, of course, you also need to provide support if there's problems, if something goes wrong, if you need help, if you need advice. And a natural way to do that is through an intelligent assistant. So they use the underlying technology to also build out a virtual assistant. And it had an incredibly high first call resolution rate that led AT&T to say, this is the strongest agent within the company. So a nice example of how conversational AI is crucial and how it can be used with a business angle. The next point, don't experiment on your customers. All too often I've heard at conferences and exhibitions where vendors talk about, it's dead easy, all you need to do is point our solution, our technology at a corpus of data, press a button, and it will self-learn from that. The reality is not really there. Building out conversational systems is more complex, but you need to get it right, and you need to get it right first time before you deploy, because one thing you can be certain of is if you put out a second-rate solution, your customers will come once and once only. They'll get a bad experience, they won't try it again, and furthermore, they will tell many of their friends. Your project will be dead before it even starts. Now, don't get me wrong, you still need to optimize your solution, but you need to pick specific domains that you can build out really deep knowledge and make sure it delivers the solution and the capability and the experience that you expect. Again, let me illustrate this with a real example. It's an example from another of our customers, Shell in this case, and it's addressing one of the divisions within Shell, which is their lubrications division. It's all about oils, basically. What's the right oil for a particular piece of machinery? Now, you might think, how complicated can oil be? Well, it turns out pretty complicated. Shell have 3,000 different product lines. They have 2,000 obsolete products. They need to understand 31,000 competitor products. They have 100,000 data sheets, and they need to understand what lubricant goes into over 1 million different engine types. And incidentally, we're not talking about, what oil goes in my Honda CR-V. We're talking about what lubricant do I need for this $20 million piece of earth-moving equipment, and you get it wrong, and there's big consequences to that. So you need to get it right every time. And with Shell, it's an international company, so you need to get it right across multiple geographies. In fact, 80 different geographies. So it needs to support multiple languages. And the stats that you see on the right are some examples of how you can get real success when it's right. Shell themselves produce these figures. Shell themselves surveyed their customers, and incidentally, this particular conversational system is targeted at their distribution channel, and 98% of users approved of the technology. That's an amazing result. And the other key measure, one that's often glossed over, is that once they implemented this technology, they saw a 40% reduction of calls through to their call center. So not only is it improving customer experience, it's also helping drive cost savings. The third point is around data. And as we're talking about conversation, we're referring to conversational data. And conversational data is immensely powerful. A little bit of a mixed metaphor, if data is the new oil, well, then conversational data is perhaps the new golden oil, if you can have a golden oil. And what I'm meaning is that when we speak in a human-like way to each other, we reveal an awful lot about what we think, our likes, our dislikes, what we're looking for. And if you are a business and you can capture that data, you can very quickly start to get an insight into what your customers are thinking, what they're looking for, what they're like, what they want. It's immensely powerful to help advise on products and on services. But data privacy is also key. We ensure that our clients are fully GDPR compliant. With our underlying technology, you can do things like anonymize personalized data, so you can still get meaning and insight from your data without falling foul of privacy rules. You have the ability, for example, to quickly identify data that's associated with an individual and delete it if need be. So data, pretty obvious, is immensely powerful. However, we're also taking into account the importance of privacy. My fourth point is make sure you know what you wish to achieve. Have a clear business case. If you can't articulate it, do not start. I mean, that business case might, for example, be to reduce costs by automating a proportion of the calls that come through to your call center. It might be to increase sales by providing an intelligent online assistant that can help guide a person through a sales process. It might be to provide differentiation. For example, we're working with a computer game manufacturer to voice enable characters in a computer game and provide a much more immersive experience. One of our customers, Skoda, really took this to heart. And what they were wanting to do was drive the journey from a visitor to their website through to actually agreeing to take a test drive. And one of the ways to do this was to have a conversation with that user. So when you come to the website, to talk to them, to ask them about what they're looking for, to help guide them in terms of the model of car that they might want, to help them configure it, to then be able to identify a dealership near them that has a car of that specific configuration that they can test drive, and to then encourage them through to take a test drive. And on the back of implementing this technology, Skoda saw a 400% increase in conversion rates and an increase in customer engagement. And of course, it kind of goes without saying, but an important point set against the COVID-19 storyline, it's available 24/7, 365. My final point is to think enterprise. Even if you're a mid-sized company and you're implementing a conversational system, you need to think about the journey of your chatbot, what you're likely to need next. So for example, do you operate in different geographies? If so, you'll likely to need a system that supports different languages. And of course, that has implications. If you're implementing in different languages, it's likely that you may have different work groups operating in different geographies. Hence, you need the ability to check in and check out part of your project, so they can all work on the same project and different bits of it at different times. You will need things like automated testing and version control and rollback. You need the ability to be able to host in different geographies, to host on premise if data security is key for you, host in the cloud if you're looking for a cost-effective solution. You need to think about, if you are building your chatbot, how many channels is it going to run across? Increasingly, people want to engage through messenger services. How can you do that? So you need to think about all of these type of issues, and when you're looking for a platform to be able to support you, you need to take them on board. So pretty well bang on time. Let me just conclude the 5 steps that I would propose to help you take your chatbot from mediocrity through to conversational AI excellence are: firstly, make them human-like. Don't experiment on your customers. Think about data, have a very clear business strategy and what you want to achieve, and think about the underlying technology that you're going to use to get you there. So we're not immediately going to hand over to questions. What I'm now going to do is hand over to Maya from Circle K, who is going to share with you her real-life example of implementing a chatbot. So, John, I think you're going to do the link. Back to you.
I was going to do the link. You see, we rehearsed this really well. So yes, we have Maya, who is senior quality responsible for digital solutions at basically kind of well-known and actually kind of very rapidly expanding kind of a convenience retailer called Circle K out of Latvia. And she's going to talk about her own experience about how conversational AI was implemented at Circle K. Really looking forward to this. Maya, over to you.
Thank you very much. That was a great introduction. Saved me a couple of sentences. So yeah, so my name is Maya Tam, and I'm IT project manager in Circle K, as John introduced me, and I'm working with implementation projects in Europe and North America. And today I'm gonna give you a small background on why we chose to work with conversational AI and how we chose the partner for implementation. Then I'm gonna cover 2 use cases, one text-based chatbot or virtual customer assistant in Scandinavia, and the second latest one is implementation of a voice bot in North America. And finally, I'm going to share some key learnings from our projects, which I hope will be helpful to you as well. Okay, so to start with, just a little background on who Circle K is, in case you don't know. So we represent the retail industry, and we are a convenience store chain offering products for people on the go. And our vision is to become world's preferred destination for convenience and fuel. So the products that we are offering is not only our Simply Great coffee, but also food and other beverages, our fuel, most definitely car rental, trailer rental, car wash, and lots more. So there is a lot to offer, and our presence is definitely global. So we have stores in Canada, United States, and Europe, and also there is a significant amount of international licenses. So that's about Circle K, and then the background for virtual customer assistants and why we chose to work with it. It's obvious that we have a lot of customers in the B2B and B2C segment, and they are approaching us with various questions about our products, services, campaigns. And also we receive those questions in multiple languages. And as it is, I think you've heard that in many presentations like these, one thing that everyone always says, virtual customer assistants are good to mimic the behavior of your agents, and they are good to take away questions like these repeated questions that we get. You can get very bored with the questions that the customers have. They're always the same. So then the task for us was to try and remove the repeated questions and drive or remove the traffic to our customer service teams. So with that, we have our project goal, which was to use a conversational AI platform and develop an integrated virtual customer assistant to reduce the traffic to internal and external customer support teams. We wanted to improve our customer experience and also drive traffic to our stores with help of our virtual customer assistants. So for the vendor selection, just very shortly, the expectations that we had. So first of all, for a global company like ours, it was very important that we were able to keep the corporate consistency, that we were able to scale up our content when it comes to, let's say, our global campaigns. Those campaigns are very similar across the countries. They have some differences, so we needed to make sure that the questions around this are not only answered in the local language, but that they have also some localized specific answer to those questions. So what we wanted to achieve was to have some kind of a template, some kind of a master version, and create localized versions based on that. For the second one, obviously, we wanted to make sure that the solution is convenient and meets our customer expectations when it comes to being able to express themselves in a natural language, that they can use chat interfaces of their choice and also device of their choice. And finally, when it comes to technology, it was important for us that it is an easy to use development platform. We wanted to involve our business users in this project so that they can work independently. And we wanted to have a technology that is fit for future, that we can integrate with our business applications and other AI solutions like RPA or voice recognition services. And for that, we chose to partner up with Artificial Solutions. They were a great fit for us, and I'm very happy to report back the results on some of the successful implementations that we have. So the two use cases, and I'm going to start with the first one. So a virtual customer assistant in B2B and B2C customer service in Scandinavia. So this is Kay, our virtual customer assistant that we have deployed on our business unit web pages in Scandinavia, Sweden, Denmark, and Norway. It has the same knowledge across the 3 countries, but it speaks 3 different languages. Everything that we do in Circle K, we always keep our customers in mind, and we always seek new ways to make our customers' lives a little bit easier every day. So easy visits, that's the kind of underlying principle for us. And we always keep that in mind in every project that we work in Circle K. So when it comes to virtual customer assistance, what does it mean, easy visit? So for us to be able to understand that, we first of all, we're working on pain points. So we were identifying the pain points, and I guess that's kind of obvious when it comes to virtual customer assistance. So what our customers are seeking for is instant support 24/7, 365. They want a quick resolution time. They want snappy answers to their very quick questions. Also, they want to express themselves using their own words. And as I mentioned before, so one of the reasons or one of the expectations towards our partner was to also make sure that we meet the customers in the most convenient way, that they can use the device and the communication channel of their choice. We also worked on desired vision. So where and what is the role of a virtual customer assistant? And for us, it was important that our virtual customer assistant has an extensive knowledge about Circle K's business, products, and offers, and our campaigns, our self-service tools. And we wanted to make sure that virtual customer assistant is a first-line support. And then if it doesn't understand or it doesn't meet the customer expectation when it comes to providing them with an answer, we wanted to make sure that an agent can take over the conversation. So we have this hybrid solution. We have developed it, and it's not in place yet, but that's something that we look forward to have it in production and offering to our customers soon. So this hybrid solution, this smooth transfer from virtual customer assistant to agent is very important for us. And this is, we think, that enables the best experience for our customers. And how we went with the project, and when we started, we decided that we want to have a rapid implementation. So we kind of chose the speed to market approach. So we developed a sturdy solution based on a couple of topics that we knew were the main call drivers to our customer service teams. And we worked on those topics. And for the other topics, we basically prepared a good answer, informing the customers that we don't have the knowledge yet about this topic, but we will be. And this kind of opened us a completely new picture. What we thought in the beginning of the project turned out to be a little bit different. So we had to take a different direction based on the customer data. And Teneo artificial solutions platform is very good for that. You can definitely get a lot of data out of it, and this was very helpful for us in early stages of the project to realize that we have to shift the focus a little bit in order to make sure that we actually meet the customer expectations. So that was our text-based chatbot in Scandinavia. The second use case is VoiceBot that we developed in our global fuel distribution call center in North America. And the background for this project is that 60% of the calls that they receive start with a very simple question. So when is fuel going to be delivered to my stores? And that question comes from our store employees, store managers, so people who are working in our stores and who expect the fuel deliveries. So this is an example where we use a conversational AI, where we have a project that is catering our internal customers, our employees. So very simple question and a very narrow use case, but the potential of it is just amazing here. So the project goal that we had was to develop an integrated voice bot to reduce the traffic to our call center. And we saw that by implementing this technology, we can handle up to 90% of ETA information requests, serving our employees both in English and Canadian French. So here is a technical overview. It looks quite complex. So what we can see, there are a lot of bits and pieces into this technology. So we can see that we have a caller, we have our phone system that is integrated with Google's voice recognition services. We have Teneo that gives us the processing power that we are looking for when it comes to transforming the data that we receive from TMW, which is our backend application that keeps information about the ETA for specific stores. So Teneo is doing all the hard work there. It's transforming the data. It's making sure that we have human-like dialogues with our employees who have this very specific request, that it can handle exceptions. And all in all, this is a great foundation for any further projects in our company using the voice technology. And even though it looks very complex here, I can say that implementation of VoiceBot for this specific use case was one of the quickest implementations in Circle K's history. This was developed in less than a month, and it's giving us great results so far. And I guess the main difference between the Scandinavian text-based chatbot and this one is that we build it once, and it's a very sturdy and good solution because, of course, the use case is so narrow. It works independently. You don't need to involve people in this at all. It does its work. It's taking away calls from our call center, and it's making the customers happier. We were able to cut the waiting time for the store managers who had this very simple question in half. So that's definitely a happy customer at the end of this project. And now for the learnings from Circle K and the virtual customer assistant project. So the first learning is that I, as a project manager, and we as a team have to be like scientists. We have to act based on new evidence and feedback. We have to be agile. And as I mentioned before, what we taught at the beginning of the project and when we were kind of building out the whole structure for what kind of topics we want to add and how we should prioritize the topics that we build over time. Quickly after the launch, we realized, okay, now we see that instead of B2B customers, we need to shift the focus on the B2C customers, because it's actually the B2C customers who have very simple questions about our stores and our services and our campaigns that we didn't answer right away, because we saw that, or we thought that the data that we have about the incoming requests to our call center teams were more complex and they were more in the B2B segment. But yeah, so we realized quickly that this is really not the way to go. And it's very important that also our platform was supporting this approach. It allows us to be agile and shift the focus and work on different directions if need to be. Second learning, this is something that we say to everyone new joining our team. So whoever is joining our team and is going to work with the development of virtual customer assistants, we'll tell them, think about the virtual customer assistant as about your new you. So you need to make sure that it acts, that it mimics yourself. And we usually want to involve our best agents in the project. And that's also very important, that you have the best team possible, that you have people who are proactive, who have very good business understanding, who have the expertise to make the virtual customer assistant successful. So definitely think about this when you involve people in the team, and also make sure that the virtual customer assistant is forthcoming, that you have well-formed answers, and that you don't create too many follow-up questions from our customer side. As Andy also mentioned, the first impression is key, so you want to make sure that your agents develop a virtual customer assistant that gives a good impression to your customers. And I want to end my presentation with a great quote coming from a great mind, Elon Musk, which is that technology does not automatically improve. It only improves if a lot of people work very hard to make it better. So you cannot think that you will buy this amazing platform and then one day the chatbot will be independent. Yeah, to get it there, to get to the point, I'm sure we will talk about that after my presentation, but you need to make sure that you have the best people involved, and that you have the best platform, and that you have the greatest synergy between the two, and then you will get the best results, and then you will have happy customers at the end of it. So that's for it. I'm happy to discuss anything that I presented today with you, so feel free to approach me through LinkedIn. And now off to you, John.
Yes, thank you. Hello, we're back now, guys, and I'm going to invite basically Andy back as well. Andy, you here? Good. We're going to have a little panel discussion for the next 15 minutes, basically, and get them to give us more basic insight into basically where we are in conversational AI, where we expect it to go, and basically some of the kind of challenges and opportunities along that way. So I think Andy started off, he mentioned it in the Gartner hype cycle that basically 7-8 years ago, basically conversational AI was going to be the GUI of 2020, I would suspect. But it's taken a little while to get here, but now seems to be moving forward. So what is the status overall, Andy, of conversational AI today? And then the slight follow-up question to Maya there is, why did you decide to engage in conversational AI in the last 12 months? What did you judge why you felt the technology was right for basic use now? So Andy, do you want to start basically what you think is the status today? Is it aligned with the expectation of the customer?
Well, you're asking a vendor to comment on on the state of the market, and I would say, and I do strongly believe, that conversational AI is getting pretty good, pretty competent now. It's strong at being able to understand a lot of what is thrown at it, what it's said, and it's able to handle things like multiple queries in the same sentence. So I cancelled my seat, can I get a refund? You know, two subject matters there, it can understand that. So I think already it is progressing well. Another point I'd like to make is there's a difference between when a customer with whom we work, a client in business, is implementing a conversational system, because then the questions on the whole are targeted at the business and the business area, and indeed the specific domain, as Maya said, for the chatbot. When you are speaking to one of the well-known personal assistants like Siri or Google Home, to be fair to those organizations, it's a much more difficult task, because it could be any question in the world. So I think there's another advantage when you are building out systems for business. You can have a very clear goal in mind and a very clear domain in which you're working, and hence you can then build out a lot of skill and intelligence into your chatbots and make them much more competent and capable. Maybe we can talk on that in a minute. I'd like to talk about the capabilities, but I'm sure that Maya, you also have some views, and I don't want to talk all the time.
I was interested about Maya because actually you shared two very interesting cases, and the second one you mentioned how it was so effective because you kept it very narrow. Was that partly what you were exploring when you looked at conversational AI, what it was really good at today, and what you're prepared to do some more experiments on to get better in the future?
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that the conversational AI works best if you have a narrow scope or more narrow scope. And that's something that we saw also about 2 years ago when we had a pilot project, when we started to kind of dig into this whole technology, and we wanted to understand whether that is something that Circle K wants to implement, whether that's something that we want to use, because the buzz is there, that's for sure. And that pilot project also was very successful for us because the scope was so narrow. We worked on a chatbot that answered all sorts of questions surrounding our loyalty campaign. And yeah, we saw a lot of questions and they were very simple. And that scope was very narrow and it was very successful. And when we entered this, I don't think we realized that we were opening the gate for so many different questions because we are such a big company, and there are so many products and services that we offer. It's quite a challenge, I can say, but if you kind of split your project in we were working in an agile scrum method, so we were splitting it in sprints. So I think that you can eventually achieve good results. It's just that you have to have a good structure, and also you need to have data that is supporting you. But yeah, that's something that we see. A lot of very simple questions, and the hopes that we have is that we would be able to replace the search button in our homepage and have a virtual customer assistant meet our customers.
And that's where you want to get to. I suppose it's expectation and business return. How did you measure business return at Circle K, and how are you finding, Andy, building multiple projects? What are people actually focusing on in terms of you say, the business case and how they're judging the return on that? So with you, Mike, how did you basically, in both those projects, did you have a specific, basically, understanding of what the return you wanted from this and some metrics you were trying to achieve?
Yeah, so for us, it was important that we can route the customers from our call center to the virtual customer assistant. And there, obviously, we understood that we can only take part of the questions from our customers. So that's the kind of the first line support that we wanted to make sure that we have in place. And then if it falls back, if the virtual customer assistant didn't understand, then we would be involving our agents. But I think that we need to work a little bit better in how we actually guide the customers to the virtual customer assistant. So for now, I would say it's early stages for us. We're still learning and we are still developing our solution. So we have been a little bit silent with the virtual customer assistant. It's there. It's accessible on our business unit web pages, but we definitely want to work more in the optimization area. That's something very, very important. You cannot expect that you will develop a knowledge and then it just works miraculously. So you definitely need to look at your data and you need to optimize that, and then you need to promote it so you can have it in more communication channels available, like our mobile app, Facebook Messenger. You can promote it on IVR as well. So I guess that you also need to have a clear understanding how you want to promote your solution in order to support your business case and actually take away the calls and emails to your call center.
Very good points there, I think, actually. I'll feed it back to kind of Andy then. Business case. You actually said that you start with the business case. So run down two business cases which you're finding which are resonating.
Absolutely. It's important to have a clear business case, as I said in my presentation, but we're finding that there's no singular business case, probably no surprises, is different with different customers. So I shared a few of the stats in my presentation. You know, Shell, one of their goals was reduction in traffic to their call center, and they saw a 40% reduction. With Skoda, it was the conversion of visitors to the website with a 400% increase in conversion. However, we have other clients. So for example, we work with actually the world's oldest surviving bank. It's an Italian bank. And even though they've been around for many hundreds of years, they like to position themselves as being a real innovator in the market. And one of the things that they did was build out the world's first virtual reality bank. And of course, when you go into the virtual world, you want to walk up to a cashier and speak to that cashier and that's the conversational AI element. Their goal was all around differentiation and being seen as an innovator. So my point is, it's clear to have a KPI that can be translated through to an ROI that can then be shared across the rest of the business, but it depends. Further, I would just add that increasingly we're seeing that increasingly we're getting requests, probably no surprises given everything that's going on, but around call containment and automating of call centers. So that's, there's no doubt there's a massive spike in interest in that area over the last 3 months.
Yeah, and you indicated that the impact of COVID is actually that people forgot about the people in the call centers. I think some evidence suggests that they are actually one of the epicenters of the pandemic, basically in certain countries. So very important. And I presumably you expect that to carry on basically now, not just for a momentary spike on the desire to basically automate.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. I think this is now a new trend for several reasons. Firstly, companies are now going to be focusing on resilience and continuity, and specifically around those customer-facing aspects of their business. And one of the ways to address that is through conversational AI. Incidentally, I would say another way is through things like robotic process automation. And when you put the two together, you then get amazing results. I can talk on that in a minute, but I don't want to just keep talking. But continuity and resilience is absolutely key. And conversational AI is a driver for that.
Okay, well, I'll ask you both questions about then. What are the major barriers today for companies adopting conversational AI? And I'll ask Maya first. What were the barriers inside Circle K? What were the questions? What were the doubts that you had to overcome to get conversational AI adopted?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Was there any barriers to adoption in Circle K? Was there anything you had to basically overcome to get the C-suite to kind of agree you to go ahead with your projects?
Okay, so according to our original roadmap, we wanted first to cover informational tasks. So we wanted to get rid of the simple questions from our customers, and then we wanted to move over to transactional tasks to be able to do some tasks on behalf of our customers. So as Andy mentioned, the RPA, robotic process automation, we were hoping that we would be having a good integration with that technology, and then we would be able to automate a set of customer requests fully. That's something that we kind of had to give up for now, because we see that even to cover the informational tasks is a challenge in itself, but also there is an opportunity that we can actually make our customers happy, and we can answer to a lot of questions without having fancy integrations in place. So I would say that any kind of integrations is one definite barrier. And then secondly is also the security and GDPR aspect that also Andy talked about. But I think that you can, again, be agile and shift your focus, and then you can make the success of something that is not so difficult to implement.
Now, obviously, Andy, following that, you pointed out actually more and more companies are overcoming these barriers, etc. Some of them probably more psychological than actual real. But basically, which ones are you finding now that are coming down that you can overcome and you actually can get adoption much quicker?
Well, there's three points that I'd like to make. Firstly, one of the barriers within the C-suite is one that I suspect everybody on this call has experienced, and that is trying a bad chatbot, a chatbot that's not been built with a conversational experience in mind. All too often, chatbots are built by developers anticipating a linear process, and we as humans just don't follow a linear process. We love to go off at tangents and then come back. And if you don't develop from the start that capability, it will fall foul and you get a bad experience. So the first point is, as I said, not all chatbots are born equal, and we've all seen bad chatbots. The second point is a kind of, if you're not really into this, why is it so difficult? We all speak, we all understand each other. What's the problem? Just build it in a computer. the reality is conversation is so difficult, and it's understanding that this is a serious project that's going to have massive implications for your company. And when you're building out a chatbot, you need it to reflect the very face of your organization. You've probably invested hundreds of millions in building the brand of your company. Why would you throw that away with a rubbish interface? You wouldn't want to do that. You want to build out a persona that reflects. And the third point that I'll briefly make is we increasingly are seeing now CIOs getting in on the act, and that's a good thing. I think previously it's been, experiment here, a bit of a game there, let's try it out. And now I think the technology is coming of age, and CIOs are getting involved and wanting to take control. They're wanting to think about things like security and resilience of the systems. Does it support different geographies? How can I tweak the processes that are different in different geographies without changing everything? And CIOs are now getting in on the act, and I think this is going to be a big accelerator for the technology.
Well, very, very positive. I mean, in person, I've been waiting for this to happen for a while, so it's fantastic that now it seems to be happening. Maya set a question, which she said at the last one of the ones she asked me to look at, was fundamentally where will we go? And at the moment, she built a hybrid system, and she did a wonderful quote from Elon Musk at the end, giving she wants to adapt and go to the future. Are we going towards a system where we can see in 3 to 5 years' time that the chatbots can mimic more conversational and can be more independent and not rely on human backup? Where do you see that? I mean, what's your view at Circle K? Do you see yourself in getting to that position where you can rely solely on?
Yeah, I think that you could be getting there eventually, even though I'm kind of like very strongly about the position where you have a synergy between people and machines. But as I mentioned in my presentation, you definitely need to have a great technology to be able to even get there, to start to considering that. But I think that at this point today, it's definitely not as independent as we would like it to be. But yeah, I don't know, maybe 3 years from now, maybe 5 better, because we had a small pilot project that was 2 years ago, and I wouldn't say that we have such a big difference between those times and today. Maybe Andy has a different answer to this.
And the end up on an up. Tell us basically where it will be fantastic in 2 to 3 years' time.
I think increasingly chatbots, conversational AI systems are becoming highly capable. What I mean is they're progressing from kind of a single question answer, kind of command and control type thing. What's the weather? It's rainy, through to doing things. So we, for example, are working with one of our clients in the US, a big pension fund, and the issue of transferring funds from one pension to another used to take up to 7 days. And now, by integrating conversational AI and RPA, it takes minutes. Now, that's one area. It's a specific, kind of application, but it's showing what is possible. So to end on a high, most definitely, this kind of technology is improving leaps and bounds, as are the implementations, and it will become more independent.
Very quick question. Someone just basically put in, it said, can they get hold of these chatbots on GitHub or any other platform to have a look at? Is that possible? Any of your basic library there, kind of Andy or?
Yes. Well, two points. Firstly, the Teneo platform is an underlying technology that's used to build out solutions, and you can play with it free of charge, give it a go on Teneo developers, and you access that through Teneo.ai, and you just register and you get access to it. And then there are point solutions such as Lyra, which is in all of the app stores, and it's a mobile personal assistant that you can try out as an end solution. Or Lbot, for example, that's a chatty, sarcastic robot that's just fun. So a couple of examples of point solutions.
Good, great. So we have some examples so you can go and play with it. So I want to thank our guests. I thought the panel was good, the presentations are even better. Thank you both, Andy and Maya. We're now coming to the end. It's It's basically 5 o'clock in London, 6 o'clock in Europe. Our next seminar is on the 2nd of July, where we look at business use case examples of AI with speakers from Airbus and Siemens. We hope that you can join us for that. Again, I think it's a free of charge one. So brilliant. Don't forget, in the interim, we'd love you to engage and network with our global community, which you can do on Twitter at World Summit AI. And if you use the hashtag WSAI20, you'll basically find us easy enough. And obviously, we look forward to seeing you next week. Hope you're safe. Thank you so much. Thank you, Maya. Thank you, Andy. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Okay, John.